Salutations, fellow humans. So every year I want to try to add a new segment to my channel just to keep it fresh. So this year what I've come up with is a series that I'm calling Versus Memes, because memes, as it turns out, are all over the place, and sometimes they make me laugh, sometimes they make me very angry and I want to say things about them. So I thought it would be fun to take some topics and go through some memes and express my thoughts and feelings about them. So today, you're going to kick off a new segment. Why not piss everyone off with the first episode? So today we're doing right-wing Jesus versus memes. And we're going to start with this one, this lovely Willy Wonka meme. You don't believe in the Bible because it was written by man? Tell me about who wrote your textbooks. So, okay, I guess that's supposed to be an argument, but here's the thing, folks. Please remember this, because nothing irritates me more than whataboutism as an argument. Yeah, okay, so they're not actually defending their position here, which is what whoever wrote this meme clearly thinks they're doing. It's like, oh, you're criticizing the Bible for being imperfect because it was written by humans. Well, what about your textbooks? Who wrote those? But you're not saying that whoever you're talking to is wrong. You're basically conceding the point in a bratty way. Instead of saying honorably, I concede the point, the Bible is flawed for having been written by men, you're trying to divert. You're not defending your position. You're trying to make us look at textbooks instead, because textbooks are equally flawed. But no, you have conceded the point, Willy Wonka. Alright, let's go to the next one. Okay, this next one, dude's looking at his Bible. Still nothing here which approves homosexuality. Okay, yeah, let's piss some people off. Let's look at the story of the Roman centurion and his beloved slave. I want to say the word is pais in Greek. That was, in America, you are most likely reading an English translation of the Bible. And, if you are a Christian nationalist or something who wants homosexuality criminalized or whatever, probably you're reading an English translation of the Bible. So the original Greek is not there, and the nuances of a language we don't understand get lost in translation. But if you look at the original Greek, the situation that is presented is a Roman centurion going to Jesus because his bottom boy is sick, his beloved sub. And Jesus doesn't condemn him. Jesus heals his beloved slave. And then, you want to go back in time from there. Look at King David. I'm going to, piss people off. David and Jonathan were obvious bisexual lovers. Like if you were to analyze the first and second books of Samuel and remove it from religious context and just look at it as ancient literature, I don't think anyone would question that. There would be no debate. It's like, oh, they were just really good friends who stripped and made out in the bushes, and, you know, Saul, like, went off on his son Jonathan. It's like, don't you think I know you side with David to your mother's shame? And then, like, I mean, the thing is, in 1st and 2nd Samuel, which is where you have the David epic, pretty much, in 2 parts, every time God is pissed off at David for something and punishes him for something, it is made very clear in the narrative. So yeah, Jonathan dies in war, but after that, David is presented as a sympathetic character. We are supposed to feel his grief when Jonathan dies. We aren't like, well, that's what you get for banging a boy. No. But, you know, whereas later on in the story, David has an affair with a married woman and knocks her up, and, you know, very long soap opera story short, he winds up putting her husband on the front lines in the battlefield to make sure he dies, so that he can then marry Bathsheba and it'll all look like it's on the up and up. No one will know he was banging a married woman, but God gets angry and punishes them, like strikes their firstborn child dead. And it's made very clear every time the wrath of God is at work in a character's death in that epic, it's made very clear. Not the case with Jonathan. Obviously, David and Jonathan were lovers, and God didn't have a problem with it. And so, you know, and then, you know, what, I'm going to look it up real quick. Yeah, okay, so here we go. David delivers a eulogy for Jonathan, and here's how he wraps it up. How did the heroes fall in the thick of the battle? Jonathan, by your dying, I too am stricken. I am desolate for you, Jonathan, my brother. Very dear you were to me. Your love more wonderful to me than the love of a woman. How did the heroes fall, and the weapons of war succumb? You know, like, if I were to say that at my best friend's funeral, everybody out there would just be like, knew it. But, I mean, the Bible is far more nuanced on the issue of homosexuality than is generally presented. You just have to really look at it. Alright, here's a good one. Republican Jesus holding a shotgun. If they are hungry, cut benefits to programs that feed them. If they are sick, deny them health care. If they are strangers, deport them. I mean, I don't think I have to point this one out too much. And then it says, Republicanians 13, 2 through 4. Like, obviously, this is illustrating that Republican Jesus and Gospel Jesus represent 2 completely different sets of values, because Jesus was all feed the hungry, heal the sick, and, you know, like, the as far as strangers, the strangers among you, the alien among you, be kind to the alien among you, don't deport them. It's not a Christian value. And Republican Jesus strikes again, love thy neighbor, as long as he's the same race, religion, and not a homo. Back to homo, because, you know, Republican Jesus is very obsessed with who's having butt sex down here on earth. When, of course, yeah, it's actually love thy neighbor. Love your neighbor as yourself. There were no disclaimers there. There was no, as long as your neighbor's not this or that. Like, the story of the Good Samaritan was all about, love your neighbor even if your neighbor is this person who you've been conditioned to despise. This one makes me laugh. You know, it's sad, Mr. Dinosaur, that many of my followers will think you lived with human beings on a 6,000-year-old Earth, making Christianity look anti-science, when it really isn't. You know what? Yeah, I mean, true story, man. There are parts of the Bible that do not align with scientific discoveries that came much later. Like, the earth described in the book of Genesis is flat. Also in the Old Testament, the sun orbits the planet Earth, not the other way around. We know better now than they did when they were writing this. But it's true that, like, people who deny science altogether, where it contradicts the Bible, make it look like all Christians are like that. The reality is most people who identify as Christians also believe in science. In fact, if you look at the two contradictory creation myths in the book of Genesis, I think the first one is the 6 days version of creation, which actually lines up pretty nicely with the theory of evolution. If you look at it, like the order that things came, like creatures came into being, they crawled out of the sea, they took to the air. Sounds like the theory of evolution to me. So I don't understand why some Christians are so angry about things like that. It's, the Bible was written by primitive men, and they were doing the best they can, to explain the way that the world worked. But yeah, Genesis in particular, like, I better stop. I could go off on a whole hour-long tangent. Let's move on. Jesus, why did Mommy get murdered in that gun massacre? How dare you question God's will or gun rights, you communist? Right. I mean, and that's what you get. He's not holding a shotgun in this particular image, but it's effectively Republican Jesus with a shotgun again. Jesus would not have been all about gun rights. Gospel Jesus, that is. Don't question God's will. God wanted your mommy shot. That was his will. Yeah. Everyone wants to jump to the defense of guns. And, while they're waving their Christian flags. And to me, it's very hypocritical. It's like, I think you can be an advocate for gun rights, but it has nothing to do with the teachings of Jesus. That's the issue there. Alright, this one. No question. God did it. God wills it. And that's religion. Versus science, which is, do you have any questions? Faith does not give you the answers. It just stops you asking the questions. Yeah, I mean, I think that is actually my definition of belief. It's where you draw a line in the sand beyond which you refuse to think or receive new information. It's just like, this is what I believe, line drawn in the sand, I'm done. Whereas science is always asking questions. Like, that's how we get better understandings in science, is by continuing to question the theories and to poke holes in them and to find the flaws so that we can find the better answers. And I was fortunate in my teen years to have a youth minister who encouraged us to ask questions. Because the fact is, if something is true, it can withstand any amount of scrutiny. There's no reason to say, don't ask questions, if what you're telling us is true. If God is real, God can withstand any amount of scrutiny. If the Bible is true, the Bible can withstand any amount of scrutiny. So, when you say don't ask questions, you're basically saying this is all horse crap, don't ask questions or you're going to figure that out. If you really believe it, encourage questions. Back to Willy Wonka. Oh, you saw a photo on Facebook making fun of Christianity? Do tell me more about how Christians are the most persecuted group in America. Again, like, this is something that irritates the crap out of me. Christians, like, getting off on being persecuted. Like, oh, we're so persecuted because you won't let us discriminate against gay people or transgender people or any people, people who aren't Christians. We're so persecuted because you won't let us force our religion on everyone in public schools or across the country. Yeah, it's ridiculous. It is absolutely ridiculous when Christianity is clearly the dominant religion in this country. Christianity clearly has more influence than any religion. You're not being persecuted for being a Christian. You're just being told that you can't persecute other people because you're a Christian. It's, yeah, one of those things. This is one of those memes that speaks to something that ticks me off. And again, just a reminder, we're talking about right-wing Jesus here. We are not talking about gospel Jesus. We're not talking about the majority of Christians here. This is a very small, very loud branch of Christianity, I guess you would call it, that have these thoughts. And that's the problem. Like, they're so loud and they're so abusive to people that, you know, and they get the attention of the media. So, you know, the media would have you believe that, well, right-wing media would have you believe that all Christians are Republicans, and anyone who isn't a Republican isn't a Christian and hates Christianity and wants it destroyed. It's just so slanted. So anyway, here's our next meme. And I don't know what the hell is going on in this meme. Like, I do not know the true context of this image. But it looks crazy. So, gay liberals showing peace, love, tolerance, equality, diversity, and progress. Christian priest showing hatred, bigotry, racism, right-wing ideals, and violence. Oh my gosh, this one makes me want to puke. Like, obviously, this is not a picture of that, but it's the idea here is that this is how all gay people are when they're arguing for their rights and saying that they are being oppressed by Christians, that they're violent and crazy, and this is how all pious Christians are when they're being accused of being hateful to people. This is solid horse crap. This meme right here. Because, you know, look up Westboro Baptist Church. That's the kind of Christian that's being talked about as being a hate group, being deeply prejudiced and bigoted against gay people and all manner of other people. And this is also not generally how gay people protest religion. And again, I don't know what the actual context of this image is. So if anybody can find out, let me know, because, you know, for all we know, they're putting on a play. I don't know. Willy Wonka again. Willy Wonka has a lot to say. Jesus was a bleeding heart, long-haired, anti-establishment, peace-loving, hippie liberal freak with strange ideas and 2 fathers. Tell me more about this Lord and Savior. True story. Right on, Willy Wonka, right on. Oh my, religious folk using technology only possible because of science to spread their belief that science is the devil's work. Like this you see all the time in the world. It's kind of cherry picking. When science is inconvenient, then it's the devil's work, it's evil, it's wrong and counter to their faith. When science gives them a convenience, they just don't think about it. And that's, again, a very small group, a very small, very loud, very visible group of people who call themselves Christians who do this because, again, most Christians do not have a problem with science. I don't know what the actual statistics are, but that's something I've consistently seen in studies, is that the majority of Christians have no problem with science. So let's end on a positive note. Okay, so Lord of the Rings, Gimli and Legolas, yes. Me, a straight conservative Christian, never thought I'd die fighting side by side with gay liberal atheists. Some truly amazing people I met online. What about side by side with friends? I could do that. Yeah, this speaks to me personally. Like, it's like the importance of being your true, genuine self. Because this speaks to the divisions not being immutable. The division between left and right doesn't need to be as severe as it appears to be if people just sit down and talk. You know, like I've talked with Republican voters who are very concerned about their guns being taken away, and found that we both really want the same thing. It's, you know, the left is being told that the right just worships guns and wants total anarchy and no regulation whatsoever. Not true. They want sensible gun laws as well. And they're being told that the left just wants to take away all the guns and take away the Second Amendment. Also not true. There is no legislation coming from Democratic senators that are trying to take away all the guns or abolish the Second Amendment. We're both being fed extremist BS. Because if you actually sit down and talk, you find out we really want the same things. And like gay rights and such, like you sit down with people, you get to know people, you find out most of the bigots are bigots because they don't know anyone who isn't like them. It's all based on assumptions. And once they get to know someone, like an elf and a dwarf, in a fantasy realm, get to know each other and they become best friends in the world. And I've seen this happen. I've had these experiences. So, I mean, I think that's the takeaway. It's like there are extremist opinions. There is a very real group of people who worship Republican Jesus and are not aware that those values are straight up anti-Christian. But you know, most of these people, if you sit down and talk with them, you find your values, your actual real true values, aren't that different. And that does not speak for everyone, because I've sat down with some people who just were as venomous as some of these memes make them out to be. But they've been a very rare exception. Most of my interactions with people on the other side of the aisle have been very respectful and very enlightening on both sides, I feel like. So So there you go. Ending this one on this video that's gonna piss everyone off on a positive note for those of you who made it to the end. So we'll see how this new segment goes as I continue with it. So until next time, do not believe everything you see on the internet.